Hey everybody, Anthony Fintana here, internet nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Black Milk album, No Poison, No Paradise. Black Milk, the pseudonym for Detroit-based MC and producer Curtis Cross. The dude has been producing albums, collaborating with other artists for years. He's pretty much a seasoned vet at this point. He's worked with people like, let's see, J Dilla, Black Thought, Elzai, another Slum Village connection there. Guilty Simpson and Sean Price on that Random Acts album, as well as Pharoah Monch. He was an early supporter of Danny Brown as well. Not one of the biggest names out there, but very well known in the underground, well known where he's from, at least in the world of hip hop. And he has a strong affinity for boom bap hip hop, as well as jazz rap, soul samples. But he is a purveyor of bold experimentation too. He's not afraid to put together a strange beat, an off-kilter beat, a dark beat, especially on this album. I mean, look at that cover. Not exactly sunny days and birds tweeting. Now, I was not crazy about this guy's last full-length LP, Album of the Year. What do you want me to say? I just feel like on that album, it was so apparent that Black Milk's lyrical abilities are not really up there with his production abilities. And while, yeah, that's sort of a consistent thing throughout all of his LPs, maybe the gap was wider there than it ever has been before. But on No Poison, No Paradise, I think that gap is closing in a pretty big way. I wouldn't say lyrically Black Milk is blowing me away, but certainly what he doesn't have in flow or sort of really clever punchlines, he makes up for in just how reflective, personal, relatable, and descriptive of his life, his experiences, this album is. The instrumentals on this thing, the beats, the kicks, thud. The snares are dirty. He loves to use a lot of sawtooth wave synthesizers. I usually prefer a very smooth, square wave, but they work in his favor a lot of the time, make his beats really rough, and they add to that grimy feel that he loves to deliver. He's really great at bringing together some jazzy samples on this record, some soulful samples on this record as well. And I would say that even though No Poison, No Paradise is a pretty grimy album, I mean, there's just filth on this LP, urban decay. Still, that does not stop it from being really melodic, cinematic. The track Interpret Sabotage, which opens this album up. It's a great track, a killer opener, a song that lyrically seems to be about Black Milk kind of aging in the rap game, fighting to stay relevant, fighting to stay interesting, continue giving fans that next evolution, that new shit. And he talks about this in a really speedy and passionate flow, and it brings this song some serious urgency. And the instrumental here has a very simple drum beat, but it is lifted with some very nicely placed synthesizer strings and some very catchy melodic leads as well. Usually I'm much bigger on sample-based hip-hop. I just love the way that samples get twisted and looped and so on and so forth, but I really am drawn toward a lot of the synth-based stuff that Black Milk does on this LP, like the song GHETTO DMF, which is obviously a reference to the Detroit Electronic Music Festival, and that electronic feel is sort of reflected in the beat with the heavy use of synthesizers and the skittering hi-hats. The synthesizers sort of have a phaser quality to them. Really, the track with reference to this festival is more of a very gritty and dark portrait of the city that he comes from. And Quelle Chris drops in on the back end with a lyrical feature with a very randy verse. I love the instrumental to the song Dismal as well, another dark track and synth heavy track. It's got a bit of an eerie Halloween vibe to it, but still very gritty. And lyrically, it's a song where Black Milk kind of reflects on a loss, a shrinkage in his fame and his success, and how that's a bit of psychological torture to him. I also love the rough synth leads and the bubbling arpeggios on the track Parallels. It's a nice backdrop to Black Milk's lyrics, which are kind of romantic, seductive, about attraction to this woman and sort of a very intimate moment that they're having. And I like the song Moneybags too, which is also very synth heavy and funky because of it. The leads on this thing are bright, they're kind of noisy. The production is solid. The issue is that the tracks that are less lyrically driven, maybe the beats are not wowing enough or progressed enough or detailed enough to be interesting from beginning to end, like the track Sonny Jr., which is a song that has Robert Glasper appearing musically. Very nice jazz hip-hop fusion and a good groove, just not a track that to me is fiery and interesting from beginning to end. And then there's the song Chords, which is one of the more playful tracks on this LP, where the synthesizers are kind of cartoony. But I don't find every melodic element in this track to be all that interesting. To me, the song ends up more of a mess than anything. And maybe that was kind of intentional because of how tongue-in-cheek the song feels. But maybe there is sort of an issue with song structure occasionally on this album, because it does hinder some of the lyrically driven songs on here like Codes and Cab Fares with Black Thought. And because of how subdued and underwhelming the instrumental and sort of the pacing of the song is, even though I do like how dark and moody the song is, and I do like the lyrics on this track too, when Black Thought finally appears, it seems like such an anticlimactic moment. And there are moments on here too where the overall rough and somewhat lo-fi sound of this album does kind of hold it back a bit, especially when it comes to Black Milk EQing the vocals of his singing guests. The track Dion's House is a pretty sweet song, a track that features a lot of pianos, organs, some tight drum fills, and this very soulful instrumental serves as a nostalgic backdrop for Black Milk to kind of spit and wax poetic about older times when he would hang out with his friend. The real sort of subject of this track is sort of how Black Milk is having a hard time getting along with this person's mother and how she sees him as you get out of here. It's a pretty funny trip down memory lane, but there are some moments here where it feels like Black Milk is a little underwhelming poetically about how he takes the blame because everyone expects him to be insane. Or the closing track on here where he says that because he's not able to pay his bills, he feels like he's falling. There's also a line on this track as well where it's like, if you don't make dollars, then you don't make sense. Some of the rhymes and wordplay on this album are basic, but maybe not as laughably so as it was on Album of the Year. And I do feel like, again, this is sort of made up for by the very true-to-life and from-the-heart storytelling that Black Milk is delivering. Like on the song Sunday's Best and Monday's Worst, which the Sunday's Best track has a sample that feels gospel-inspired, and it's a song about being a kid and getting up on Sunday, going to church, the family, the deacon, you're pretending to be sick, you'd rather be playing video games, it's all there. Later in the track referencing how as an adult he sort of chose the wrong path, made some bad moves. And that's essentially where the track Monday's Worst comes in, where we find Black Milk sort of plotting on doing some dirt, robbing this guy who's drunk outside of a club, taking his chain. And I love the soulful hook on this track too, singing about how it's never too late to get your values straight. And it's cool to see this connection between these two tracks. And there are other connections between two tracks on here as well, other pairs of tracks. Songs like Parallels as well as X Chords, because X Chords sort of seems to be the sexy moment that follows the seduction of Parallels. And then there is Sonny Jr., which is kind of like this jazzy dream sequence before Sunday's Best. Then there's also Perfected on Putnam Ave, which is kind of this dreamy, positive, light-hearted trip backwards into nostalgia land, like many other tracks on here are. But right after that is the song Dismal, which is more about the current adult state of affairs, where Black Milk is sort of not seeing that much hope in his career right now. There are some well-formed dichotomies on this LP between the past and the present, the good and the bad, making positive and negative choices in your life, being a success, being a failure, but still, despite all of that, hoping for the best at the end of all of it. I love this album. I think it's very good. I think it's well put together. I think I have a few issues with it. Maybe it's a little too low key. I wish it was just more, I guess, in your face with how great it is. Plus, there are some points where the mixing is just okay and the vocal EQing, like I said. And the closer on here, the Moneybags track, while I do feel like much of what Black Milk's suffering sort of comes down to is lack of money, and maybe that's why this track ends the album off. Musically, sonically, it still feels like a somewhat anticlimactic closer and not really the most poignant finish to you know, an album that seems as personal and as reflective as this. There are some spots where I feel like this album could be just tighter, more cohesive, maybe flow a little bit better in a storyline sort of way, but still, I feel like even in this disjointed state, No Poison, No Paradise is still an incredibly telling and relatable album. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this thing. Transition. But if you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Black Milk, forever.